again, and that's a
Here,
good thing. Another year.
yes, it is 2023, and it's currently sprinkling at my house,
Hmm.
but had a nice a New Year's at home,
Hmm.
and well, actually went out to my brother's, and he's got a little bit of acreage
Hmm.
and had some fireworks.
Hmm.
He had some neighbors over and lit off a few fireworks. And when there's snow on the ground and it's in a canyon, I mean, it
Hmm.
just is so pretty,
Yeah,
actually, because they're the big ones. And that was a lot of fun. Just a few,
that's
nothing major. But then
awesome.
came home, and because that was all early,
Hmm.
and then came home and watched the show
Hmm.
out the windows because I could see fireworks like all over town.
Yeah. Well, the best place to be was any place but an airport. So, so that's a
Yes,
good thing.
no kidding. No kidding.
Yeah.
So,
So it's
and
our
how
first
about you? What'd
wonderful.
you do on New
Yeah.
Year's?
Oh my goodness, we had the so New Year's we really laid low. Christmas we had the freeze here, of course, and so there was no going anywhere. So we had a family come to the house, made a gigantic fire, and cooked dinner and watched Christmas movies like old ones like White Christmas and uh, oh I can't think of the one, but yeah, just watched movies like that, and it was a blast. It was a blast. So that's our tradition, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, and I'm
cool.
proud to say I think I only gained 1 pound. That's a new record for me. You know.
I wish I could say that.
Yeah.
I only gained a few, like three.
Right. Yeah.
You
However,
know, I was
the,
like,
yeah,
oh,
the,
it's so
yeah.
easy to go on, and it's so hard to get off.
Well, this is the first year I've done it. Oh, I admit the Christmas movie was Die Hard. Gotta watch Die Hard every year, right? But it was a great time.
Well, I'll tell you, I 2023 is sort of getting off with bang a
Mhm.
little bit in
Mhm.
some things. And as we were talking about the football right before we got on, and also I want to say Happy New Year to our viewers, because we are, you are part of why we're here, and we enjoy the feedback and having the interaction, and of course sharing everything.
Yeah, I'll double down on that. I love seeing your comments on the side. And I love the fact that you all are so engaging. And yeah, Bobby, I'm not running yet, but I'm riding a bicycle. I rode on a block on Sunday for the first time since the surgery. So slowly coming back. Thank you.
Hey, that's great. That's great. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
So on this football game,
Hmm. Yeah, I just think that we had to at least comment on it. I'm going to guess most of our audience knew about that because we've talked about this for over a year in terms of it's only going to be a matter of time before we all know somebody that was adversely impacted by the vax. Now, do we have 100% evidence that that was the cause of this young man collapsing on the field? And for those of you who don't know, that's what happened on Monday Night Football in front of 13 million viewers, by the way. Um, so we don't know. However, what's the most likely what's the most likely explanation, right? And it's just insane to think that you would not even consider that that could be it. I remember the last time I was 10 years old. It was like 1971, I think, when an NFL player died of a heart attack on the field. They had to be a pretty hardcore fan to remember that. And I can't remember his name. He was like a defensive guard, I think, right? But we've gone 50 years without that happening.
yeah.
And I'm not saying this young man's going to die, but it's pretty touch and go. So what's changed? What's different in that 50 years? And we see that across all kinds of activities, whether it be broadcasters, sportscasters, media people, actors, entertainers, singers, athletes of every persuasion, right?
Yeah.
Are getting very sick and or they're dying. And these are young people too, right? So when have we seen this before? And so, and the media can continue to hide it. They can bury it. Big pharma, big medicine, they can all continue to hide it as much as they want. But at the end of the day, it's only a matter of time before someone collapses on the biggest stage that we have in this country, and that's football. And it's
Yeah.
happened. So what explanations are they going to give? My understanding is that there were people coming out and immediately trying to shut down people who would raise this as being mean or cruel, or the family hasn't changed, all of those other arguments that they use. But we are perfectly in our right to ask that question. If this thing is causing uh, adverse reactions, across the population, what more important thing could there be than to discuss it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it is amazing to hear some of the analytics. I was able to watch some even today. And there was a doctor speaking about, well, you just have to have the right hit at the right time, at the right heartbeat, and then this is what happens. And maybe that's so. I mean, I don't doubt that that's so. But we, with having so many people, as you well pointed out, that are having adverse reactions and keeling over, there's a lot. In fact, I read today, and I wish I had pulled this up. I didn't know that we were going to be talking about this, but there was something to the effect of 2,000 people in 2 years, or 1,100 people in the past 2 years that have just keeled over, and that are in sports. And it's like 1,100 people for the last 40 years,
Yeah,
or
it's
something to that effect. It's
yeah.
that many. I think it was 29 a year,
Hmm.
typically 29 a year.
Hmm.
And yet we've had 1,101 in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
So yeah, statistically, it's that big an anomaly. It just doesn't make sense. And anyone who's watched any amount of football, and I've watched prodigious amounts of it, I haven't watched it in the last 3 years because I'm boycotting this stuff, but
Yeah.
I've been around it enough. That was a regular everyday hit. There was nothing unusual about that hit whatsoever. If that kind of a hit is causing this to happen, then the sport needs to be banned and it needs to go to flag football or something, right? There was nothing unusual about that whatsoever. And I can't remember the name of the condition that they're talking about, where you get hit and it's right in the middle of your heart's rhythm conduction, right?
Hmm. Right.
That happens about 20 times a year in a country of what, 300 million people. That happens 20 times a year. The probability that was it is minuscule. Plus, that that condition that happens with young men or young people like 13, 14, 15 years old, when their bodies haven't developed enough to take that kind of hit. That doesn't happen in grown people, right? So all of these things they keep trotting out to pretend that it can't be the vax is
Yeah.
just insane. And one last thing I'll add too, the kind of hit that you get for that, it has to be a small hit in a very specific place. So it's things like hockey pucks, baseballs, lacrosse balls, right? It doesn't happen from a football hit, which is covering a padded area. So the,
Yeah.
the
And the helmet.
probability,
I mean, the
and the
helmet
helmet,
helmets are large.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, the probability that this was the cause is statistically, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's
Yeah.
also possible that OJ didn't do it too, right?
Right.
There's like a 1 in 400 million chances that it wasn't his blood. And that's what we have to look at is we're looking for evidence. And the thing that is the biggest piece of evidence against the people who would say is not the vax is you doth protest too much, to steal from Shakespeare, right? You don't want people to even discuss it. That tells me it needs discussing.
Yeah, and like Lori just said, the crazy thing is there were many sudden death reports falling on deaf ears, and then this happened in front of millions of people. Now he is alive, and he's been intubated, and the report that I saw today is that he is showing signs of improvement.
Hmm. Right.
Okay, and I have no idea to what that is. I will say the one thing, two things. First of all, it's I was reading something today that the NFL has asked for no players to make a comment, like a media blackout,
Hmm.
for a couple of weeks
Hmm.
regarding that. They don't want anybody saying anything.
Hmm.
And then again, why? Why?
Hmm.
Why not?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Because it's okay. It's our freedom of speech and our
sure.
freedom of expression to be able to do that. Then the other thing is, and I hate that when that happens. Uh,
That's okay. It
lost
happens
my,
to us all.
I lost my train of thought. But hmm, I totally
Well,
lost it.
well,
I
while you're noodling that, I'm going to piggyback on something Lori just said about the NFL covering their derrieres. I think she's 100% right because look, that team, I saw a report, that team was proud of the fact that they forced 100% of their players to have the vax. That's what they did to make these. So, is it likely that they're going to admit that something that they mandated causes to happen? There's lawyers just wringing their fists waiting for that. So there's no way they're going to fess up to that. And that goes for a lot of these companies, that goes for these teams, that goes for lots of organizations who've done this. They're not going to backpedal and admit that they put people in a position to risk their life to do the sport that they love.
yeah.
Um, that's what
So
they've done.
the second point I was going to make, it was wonderful to see all of them on their knee praying.
Great point. Great point. I'm
When
amazed that the media didn't black that out.
right, right, because in fact I saw a little thing today somewhere in social media that I was looking of a ESPN reporter actually on television today saying a prayer out loud in front
Mhm,
on his program. He goes, I just have to take a minute and
mhm,
say a prayer, and there's power in prayer.
mhm.
And it
That
was
guy be out
nice.
of a job in 6 weeks.
He might be, but he can have a lawsuit because
Mhm,
this is his right to do.
sure.
But
Mhm,
I've when the whole kneeling started against our national anthem,
mhm,
I gave up watching the sports. I
yeah.
just went, you know what?
Mhm,
I don't have to support you financially or the networks or any of that.
mhm.
So I was not watching the game, but I heard about it later. And of course, it was in the news and whatnot. And I've seen the pictures of the teams praying, and that is wonderful to see.
Yes, it was. I'm glad you brought that up. I hadn't thought about that angle, but that is 100% correct.
Yeah.
That was a great thing to see. And I, like you, I've been watching the sport. Super Bowl six was my first Super Bowl, right? That gives you an idea. I was like a mad fan until 3 or 4 years ago. I've not watched a game of basketball, football, or baseball in 3 or 4 years now. Now I've gotten used to not watching it.
Right.
But I'm not going to, I'll be darned if I'm going to pay you to destroy my country. Sorry, I'll find something else to watch.
Yeah, the sports is entertainment, but when you start
Mm,
doing the political advocacy, then no, thank you. I'm
mhm. Yeah,
that we have enough of that,
yeah.
with we have enough of that.
Mhm,
So talking about politics, there is we've got, let's see, how about Twitter?
mm. Twitter's always fun.
Twitter, Twitter files. So some new files have come
Mhm,
out, and I will say I'm not up to speed on all of that, but there is with these new Twitter files. So I just posted an article from PJ Media today by Matt Margolis, and it's the Twitter files. Schiff lobbied Twitter to ban accounts and censor content. This doesn't surprise me, and it probably doesn't
mhm.
surprise you either, Don.
Yeah, yeah. It's about as Orwellian as it gets.
Yeah.
Um, you know.
So apparently, so Tuesday was the latest Twitter file dump by independent journalist Matt Taibbi, and he released screenshots showing that in November of 2020, Adam Schiff's office requested that journalists Paul Sperry, an investigative reporter for Real Clear Investigations, be permanently banned from the platform, and claiming that Sperry had repeatedly promoted false QAnon conspiracies and harassed one of the California congressman's staffers. And there were others. It ends up going through here. It actually shows that the office, let's see, so his office asked to do a lot of banning. But as you go further into this article, there were other agencies that were asking the same thing. So now they have evidence of multiple government agencies, including the State Department, the Treasury, HHS, NASA, and more. And at least one Democrat congressman's office pushing one of the world's top social media platform to censor stories and suspend accounts that it didn't like. But that was under false pretenses.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it makes me think about a little bit of the history. Was it, remember Joe McCarthy, back in the 50s in the House Un-American Committee, and how everybody said the guy was crazy and a drunk and all of that. And he may have been a drunk and he may have been crazy, but he was also correct.
Right. And
Very correct.
right now, all the conspiracy theories have come true.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, my wife and I have come to the conclusion that, once upon a time there were things that you would have said, no way, right? And
Right.
now you have to actually consider them, because these people have done things that are so outrageous
Yeah.
that you have to actually think maybe that's not so crazy. Um,
Exactly.
you,
Things
you
that
see stuff, yeah, you see stuff every day that you would not have imagined even 5 years ago.
no, it's true. Things that you go, really? Could that really be true? And now you find out, sure enough, it is. So that's what we've come to the conclusion here in our household is
Hmm.
that things that I would have called a conspiracy
Hmm.
is now is now the reality. But as we have experienced, Don, time and time again, anything the Democrats accuse the Republicans of doing is exactly what they're doing.
Oh, 100%. It reminds me, I read something somewhere where the Taiwan government, whenever China says something, they assume it's the opposite. The opposite is the truth, right? That's pretty much where you have to go with what the Democratic Party's become. I was talking to somebody earlier about, and this person was classifying themselves like, I'm an old school liberal, and I don't get any of this stuff. And I was saying, yeah, because you're what I would call a JFK liberal, right? Which would have been, which now would be almost a conservative, right?
Yes, definitely. The
Um,
party of JFK doesn't exist any longer. I
no,
mean, they
it's
would be, I think the JFK Democrats would be Republicans today.
right, right. Yeah, no, exactly. And
Yeah.
probably centrist Republicans at that.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
um, yeah.
And along the lines of politics, well, don't have a Speaker of the House. Now they've done 6 votes, and tonight they went to recess until 8 o'clock Eastern time, which was 5 o'clock our time. And now they've actually voted to recess for the night. And so they'll be back tomorrow and we'll have to see. I do find that interesting that I was able to watch some of this today. This
Hmm.
morning, I went and, along the lines of politics, I went and watched 2 of our county commissioners get sworn in,
Hmm.
and one
Right.
is reelected. And
Hmm.
I will say, I'm happy to say that I helped him to get elected
Hmm.
the first time.
All right.
And then the second one is a brand new commissioner and a first
Hmm.
time. Cindy Timmons is her name, and she is
Hmm.
the first woman commissioner for Umatilla County.
All right. All
And
right.
she is a friend of mine. Actually, her mother was a friend of mine before I knew Cindy.
Uh-huh.
And so I went to their swearing in ceremony. That was
Hmm.
really nice way to start the day.
Yeah.
And a fellow who doesn't live too far away is a our former judge
Hmm.
here, and he did the swearing in. So it was nice to see many friends at our
Hmm.
county courthouse in
Yeah.
the commissioner's office, and
Hmm.
having seen them get sworn
Yeah.
in and
Hmm.
have a visit. Even saw Senator Bill Hansel
Hmm.
there
Okay.
today.
Yeah.
That was
And this,
nice, but to have we don't have a speaker, and it's interesting. So what I was going to say was I watched this afternoon when they had done a after the third vote, and they
Hmm.
said they were going to, come back at 8 o'clock.
Hmm.
There was a group of veterans, and I don't know how many. I don't know if they call themselves the Veterans Caucus or
Hmm.
just what, but a group of veterans came and made a speech. They
Hmm.
held a press conference, and they
Hmm.
said, amongst us here, we've got 291 years of military service. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, you know, and
Yeah.
many in combat, not all, but many
Hmm.
in combat.
Hmm.
And they said, it's a different mindset, and you'll appreciate this being in the military, that it is service before self.
Hmm.
And so we've got 20 people holding up the 201.
Hmm.
Uh, and so this is where, are they putting service before self, those 20? I don't know.
Hmm.
But it was
Right.
interesting to listen to the military, um, the fellows that, and men and women. There was at least one woman I saw in there,
Hmm.
which was nice to see, wearing a pink
Hmm.
dress.
Right. Right on. Yep. Right on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so that was, I thought that was actually a good press conference
Yeah.
to give to the American people. They said, "We're
Hmm.
talking to you all,"
Hmm. Well,
you
I
know?
think, and I'm not saying this is 100% true, but one of the things that you benefit from in the military is you swear an oath not to a leader or a president or a position. You swear an oath to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States, right? And so people who go in those positions were more likely, I think, to carry that with them into that role. That's what we're here to do. To defend and protect the Constitution, and so many people have lost sight of that. Um, you know,
They
it's not the
mentioned
job.
that.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, yeah. That's and a lot of people. I find it stunning, although I shouldn't. How few people run of the mill on the street people know this or understand this. I mean, you have to have rule of law, or the whole thing collapses. I mean, you just can't make up rules, whether I like the rules or not. I just can't make them up,
Right.
um, because that's how you have anarchy. And it's just incredible how few people seem to grasp, that concept. And the purpose of government is not to fix people's problems. I mean, that's it's a hard truth, but that is the truth, because the only way to do it is to take from one person and give it to another.
Mhm.
It's just not the job of it. And I find so few people articulate, even conservatives. I was listening to a really prominent conservative debate a liberal on a show a few weeks ago, and his points were great, but he could have like swept all that to the side and at bottom just said, because it's not at the end of the day, it's not the government's job, at least not the federal government's. Um, that's how you answer that. because
Right.
because
And
it
that's,
can't, it's not a question of whether I want to or not. It can't fix their problem. It just makes more problems.
yes. And so they spoke about their, so one of them said, "I'm supposed to be on at some committee meeting today, but I
Hmm.
can't go." That was this afternoon. And
Hmm.
I can't go. Where we go have our secret meetings, secure meetings, not secret, but secure, in the secure buildings and whatnot.
Hmm.
He said, "I couldn't go." And it was on intelligence.
Hmm.
And so, yes, there's things that are not happening or are getting stifled
Hmm.
because the world is still going on.
Right. Hmm.
Right? And the
Yeah.
speaker is actually number 2 in line, or 3 behind the
Hmm.
vice president,
Hmm.
for that would be number 2 behind the president.
Right.
And so it is a very, very important position. And it's been interesting to see who they have. I'll use the term trotted out, although that's
Hmm.
not really what happened, but who they put for a
Hmm.
nomination,
Hmm.
against Kevin McCarthy.
Hmm.
And, like Jim Jordan, he didn't want to be nominated. He goes,
Hmm.
"No,"
Hmm.
and I think he wants to head up the judicial committee. And I'll tell
Mhm.
you what, he would be excellent at doing that.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there are people, we have to use, I think, all of the tools that are in the toolbox, and we have a
Mhm.
lot of tools in our toolbox,
Right. Yeah.
but we haven't started the car yet. We
Mhm.
haven't. We have to get a speaker in order for things to get started. And
Mhm.
there's lots I don't know about the process. I'm not going to say that I certainly know anything. And I've learned in my role of being involved in politics is there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes that we realize, and there's more. So it's best not to second judge
Mhm.
what the politicians, what they're doing or why they're doing it, because
Mhm.
I think there's a lot more at play than we're going. In fact, I know there is than what we know.
Right. Oh yeah. No, absolutely. It's a messy, nasty business at the end of the day. And what was it? Churchill said something like, "Democracy is like just a horrible system. It's just better than the other ones." Right. And I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Yes, and but it's interesting to watch this historical play out,
Hmm.
because look at our country. We're doing it
Right.
because not everybody gets to do this. This is not what happened in China. I guarantee it,
That is
right?
true. That is true.
There's a lot of countries in the world that this is not the process. So it is
Mhm.
interesting to see the process play out.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if Kevin McCarthy will be elected. I have a feeling he will, because there's 201 right
Mhm.
now that have consistently voted for him,
Uh-huh.
and 22, I think it's 22 that haven't.
Mhm.
And so, well, 20, yeah, 21
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
haven't. And that number hasn't grown today. It grew
Mhm.
yesterday, but it
Right.
hasn't grown at all today. One actually just voted present. So they've
Right.
one Republican, I don't know who it was.
Mhm.
And both of the Oregon Republicans have voted for McCarthy. I
Mhm.
was
Good.
watching that and paying attention to that. And,
Mhm.
I think there's more that goes on behind the scenes
Mhm.
than we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Always. Always.
Always. Yeah. And you can't lay your whole card out, your whole
Mhm.
hand out there. But
Yeah.
and the Democrats, of course, are making a lot of to do about this and
Mhm.
a lot of negativity. But I'm happy to see this play out.
Mhm.
I
Well, that's
hope it does not go. I saw somebody on social media go, "Oh, I hope this goes like for 3 months." I don't. I don't,
yeah.
because we do have to do the business of our country.
Right.
And there we don't have a king, and
Mhm.
there is, the president doesn't just go rule by himself, the
Mhm.
courts don't, and Congress doesn't either. It
Yeah.
takes all three, and we need a strong leader that
Mhm.
will push back on the Democrats, in my
Sure.
opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
we'll have to see. And I hope that the Republicans don't do anything. I'm seeing what, uh, and yes, we have to get the people that are sworn in. They're not even sworn in, so they
Mhm.
can't go to any committees or they can't go to any meetings. They
Mhm.
can't go into secure rooms and
Mhm.
start doing the work of our government that we have. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to have to wait and see there what happens. So listen, there is a story here that I found kind of funny.
Mhm.
Funny, it's not funny. It's one of those. Funny's not funny.
Yeah.
So Colorado is a sexual sanctuary state, and New York is a sanctuary state.
Mhm.
Well, Colorado is saying, you know what, we have got enough illegal aliens, and we're going to ship them to New York.
I think that's a
And
great idea.
New York's going, wait, we don't need any more. We have a lot. We don't want any more. So, now New York City Mayor Eric Adams is going, no, 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 no. We don't
Uh-huh.
need any more of them.
Yeah, well, it's
So,
kind of about how you're going to, well, sending them anyway. I never think of Colorado as a border state, but it borders on border states. I guess it's probably what's happening. But if you're thinking of states like California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, right? I mean, their infrastructure is being absolutely swamped by this. And these states that are far north that don't have to deal with the direct impact of their policies, can can poise and virtue signal all day long until these people start showing up at the door. And this is precisely what needs to happen. I think it's
yeah.
the greatest thing ever.
Well, I do too. So, from the Colorado governor, his name is Jared Polis. He said that we received a quote, we received over 30,000 asylum seekers that are in
Hmm.
need of not only shelter, but food, education for children, health
Hmm.
care, and some of the basic items that are needed. Now,
Hmm.
we were notified. Oh, so no, I'm sorry. This is from, I misspoke here. This is from the New York City. Adams told a radio host. He goes, now we were notified yesterday that the governor of Colorado has now stated that they're going to be sending migrants to New York and Chicago. And this is just unfair for local governments to have to take on this national obligation.
Yeah.
Hello,
They should be
hello.
thrilled. They should be thrilled that we're following their policies.
And he says, we've done our job. There's no
Mhm.
more room at the inn. Well, you
Yeah.
better make some room because,
Right.
and you know what? Every state is a
Hmm.
border state these days,
Right.
unless
Yeah.
you are not an asylum state.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
And
100%.
he says this has really impacted on the quality of life in New York and our
No.
ability to provide everyday long term New Yorkers on the needs that they have during this difficult time. So this must be
Mhm.
addressed. Hello. What do
Cry
you
us.
think
Yeah.
that
Cry us a
Texas
river.
and Arizona and
Right.
California
Hmm.
and New Mexico and
Yeah.
Florida have all been
Yeah.
dealing with?
It's always easy to virtue signal on somebody else's dime. Um, that's where it is.
Yes, it is. And so Marjorie says, how's Oregon doing with the illegals? I
Mhm.
don't have any idea, but I do know that because I hear reports of them being shipped over here
Mhm.
to Umatilla County. And
Mhm.
speaking of Oregon, something that I came to my attention a few weeks back as I was doing some research in my own county, Umatilla County.
Mhm.
For some reason, we got grant funding for
Mhm.
to help homeless population. We're the only county on the east side. So let's see. We're going to get them shipped over here, I'll bet you, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
it
yes.
ends up 5 counties in our state have
Mhm.
been, you could call it sanctuary counties. I have
Mhm.
no idea. But
Yeah.
5 counties are receiving extra money for homeless.
Yeah.
Now, why did we need it? Why
See,
didn't another county get it?
like Multnomah, maybe.
Well, Multnomah might have been on the list. I'm going to have to find that article because I'm finding that in Umatilla County, sometimes we are like a guinea pig
Mhm.
county. Oh, yeah, you're going to be the pilot county.
Right. Hmm.
And in fact, we were the pilot county for some of the Zuckerberg
Hmm.
machines
Right. Yep. Okay. I
in
wouldn't be
Oregon.
surprised. Yep.
And so, yeah, they're planning ahead, Bobby says. Well, let me tell you, you're exactly right. And so
Yeah.
I think by us citizens, we need to pay attention and
Hmm.
fight back against that.
No, this is where that local involvement in any way you can is going to be so big because what happens is these lefties they live this. I mean, this is their gospel. This is their religion. I mean, they live for the acquisition of power and imposing their views on other people. So, a regular citizen just wants to work, raise their family, do the right thing. Meanwhile, these people are getting in a position so they can tell you how to live because that's what they live by. And you have to recognize that. And we have to start. We can't go about our business and ignore them anymore. I mean, in so
Yeah.
many ways, this has happened. I mean, I grew up in Portland, and when I go through it, it's amazing in a zillion little ways. If you know anything about Portland, for example, the freeway system's atrocious. How can you have a city that big and has only got one east-west freeway and two north-south freeways? It's an absolute abomination. They haven't added a single lane of freeway traffic since like the mid '80s when they added a lane in the Banfield. That's like stunning. The
Yeah.
population's probably doubled or tripled since then. And you can slice that 100 ways. The desire to force everybody on the buses, the refusal to build a bridge unless it's got like all kinds of like criminal transport system, mechanisms on it. Free bus rides through town, so that the worst among us can ride around and spread crime for free. It's just that's what they want. The desire to force everybody onto a bicycle. Look, I'm a cyclist. I've probably ridden, I figured I've ridden bicycles somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 miles over the last like 30 years, right? But
Wow.
I'm smart enough to know that not everybody can ride a bike. And we're talking a place that rains all the time.
Yeah.
How many groceries can you buy and ride around on the bicycle? But you look at what they've done in Portland is as if anybody who's not between the age of like 18 and 35 doesn't exist, in parts of
Yeah.
Portland. That's what they behave like. And you can't even drive, you can't get around. And it's by design. You've taken two-lane, one-way streets and turned them into one-lane streets, and the whole other rest of the road is nothing but bicycles. It's just insane. And this is coming from a cyclist.
Yes, it is. And you want to have some bicycle lanes, but not at the expense of the vehicles. But it is all by design. And I'm going
Hmm.
to answer Lori. Lori, Lori, we have a lot of agriculture in Umatilla County. A lot of agriculture that needs to have workers. So, are they allowed to work here? That's a good question. We're a sanctuary state. I would like to make Umatilla County not be a sanctuary county. For
Hmm.
actually, there was I don't think it was San Bernardino County in California,
Hmm.
maybe Riverside County. Riverside's a pretty conservative county. There was a couple of counties and cities that pushed back on California and said we're not going to be a sanctuary. But you have to have people
Hmm.
in like county commissioners. They're willing to make a stand and do that pushback. Do
Hmm.
we have them? I don't know.
Yeah.
And you also have to, there's a lot of things to fight. So
Hmm.
which battles do you want to battle?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. You got to pick things that you see as winnable. But at the same time, you still have to have a vision. I mean, I'm sure there were many who said 50 years ago Roe v. Wade wasn't winnable, and they stayed after it. So, it's you definitely have to be strategic, though.
Yeah.
You only have so many resources. Where are you going to expend them?
You're right. And so we've got, I'm going to change the subject to gun laws now
Mhm.
because we've got two good pieces of news on that.
Mhm.
That is always good. And the first one that I am posting has to do with New York
Mhm.
and the New York gun control law that is a red flag law, much
Mhm.
like we've got here in Oregon, has
Mhm.
been deemed unconstitutional by the New York Supreme Court because basically there is no due process,
Mhm.
that they can just say, hey, we're going to come and take your guns.
Mhm.
And the judge says, sorry, you cannot do that. You can't just say, well, we're going to come take your guns.
Mhm.
The law is in violation of the Second and the 14th Amendment
Mhm.
because it does not sufficiently protect a citizen's rights.
Mhm.
So that's what the state Supreme Court Judge Thomas Moran said in a ruling, and that was in late December of 2022. And then, so this red flag law has been updated in July of 22, but it still apparently is unconstitutional. So I would think that puts a lot of pressure on Oregon's red flag laws. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I can be mistaken.
Mhm.
But the other good piece of news, what I deemed a good piece of news, is that in Oregon, We have, yes, exactly. Keep setting the precedents. That's exactly right. So the judge in Malheur on Tuesday declined to lift his order that temporarily freezes part of the new voter approved gun safety measure. And so it is all, he has, let's see, he put all of, he put several elements on hold, including a permit to purchase the provision and a ban on high capacity magazines.
Hmm.
So on Tuesday, he just kept those on hold. He has
Hmm.
not made a ruling.
Hmm.
And so, therefore, that's what he's done. He's just extended the ban on new gun law background checks. And the state has said they should be able to, and this was a lawsuit filed in Harney County by the Gun Owners of America, Inc., and
Hmm.
Gun Owners Foundation, and several individual gun owners. And the law is going to be, I'm trying to find where I had read this. The state says that they should be able to process all of this around March, and the judge has said, "Well, we'll come back and revisit that then." So there we are, and I
Yeah.
think that's good. The more that this thing gets extended,
Hmm.
find out if it's unconstitutional, because that's where it needs to go.
Hmm.
Is to see if it's unconstitutional. And
Yeah.
I want to take a little bit of a one more thing, if I could, and that is on Tina Kotek. You know that FTX crypto Ponzi scheme?
Hmm.
Well, Tina Kotek had received $500,000 donation,
Hmm.
but and she has not, and the Democrat Party has not said they're going to return that, but yet the Ohio teachers lost their investment funds in the FTX collapse. The Canadian teachers, which it doesn't say how much, the
Hmm.
Canadian teachers lost $95 million, and New York and Missouri public employees had pension fund losses as well. And those don't say what their dollar amounts are. So
Hmm.
I really think it would be great if Tina Kotek and the Oregon Democrat Party return those funds.
Well, you know, the Democratic Party has only one word to say to those people, and that's suckers. That's how they roll.
Yeah,
You were the wrong,
yeah.
you were the wrong, you were standing in the wrong place when the music stopped.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that is, frankly, I
Yeah,
think what the
because
Democrats say
there ain't no
for sure.
morality going on in that party, right? I mean, none. You will never see them do the right thing. The moral thing is the thing that might cause them some pain in exchange for right. That's not going to happen. That's been stomped out of the party the last 20 years. Not going to happen. Um,
Right,
I
right.
wish I were wrong. I wish I were
I,
wrong.
I I wish you were too, but it is the reality, Don.
Yeah,
That they're the party that is trying to destroy our country
yeah, completely and
bit by bit.
100% unprincipled. Um,
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any last words, Don?
Yeah, nothing other than it was a great first wonderful Wednesday of the year. It's always fun to spend it with our crew here, and with you, Sonny. That was great. I hope you all get as much out of this. I get a lot out of these. I really do. It always causes me to think in ways I hadn't thought before. And one thing's for sure, what we're dealing with is an anti-reason gang. At the end of the day, it's anti-reason. It's anti-truth. And anything that helps us to reason on our own, not just absorb what they say, but listen and ask yourself that question: does that make sense? Right? Always asking that question: does that make sense? And if you do that, I think you're going to be fine on balance. So there's my ending thought, of course.
Yes, we have to, and we have to promote critical thinkers.
Absolute.
Critical thinkers. When the shutdown started, in fact, when they said 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I thought, where's
Mhm.
that going to end?
Yeah,
My immediate thought, where's that going to end?
yeah, and you
And
know,
and
yeah,
all of that. And I from the very beginning, I said, we've never quarantined healthy people. Ever, ever,
yeah,
ever, ever,
yeah.
ever, ever.
And I gotta admit, they had me for 3 or 4 months, you know? I mean, I'll admit, they had me I was at about the 3rd month, I'm thinking, "Okay, this is starting to smell." For the same reasons you just said, we've never done these things before, and we've
Yeah.
had things far more dangerous than this. Um,
Yeah. So promote, I like what Marjorie says, promote common sense,
mhm,
promote critical thinking, and and we have to take care of ourselves,
mhm,
because it's as they say in the Arab lines,
mhm,
put your mask on first, and then
yeah,
you can help someone else. And we have
yeah,
to take care of ourselves. Doesn't mean we're selfish. It's just
mhm,
that we do have to be like that. And
yeah.
so, everybody, Don, it's wonderful to see you, and happy new year again to you and your family, your lovely bride. And I'll see you next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday it is. You all take care.
Okay.
All right,
Good night,
bye-bye now.
everybody.